Happy holiday. I know. You're all thinking, Father Bill, yesterday technically was Hunter's holiday, but I want to wish you all an observed weekend of Hunter's holiday. So I say to you again, happy holiday. I'm impressed that there are as many of us at Mass on this Sunday morning, the day after the opening day of elk season. I take it that it means that everybody filled their tags yesterday. And I know out here in the sands it opened last week and all of that stuff. Needless to say, I'm excited, right? Rifles cleaned and sighted in. I took Dad out yesterday. We got his rifle sighted in. We're going deer hunting at the end of this week, elk hunting in a few weeks, my favorite time of year, as I have shared with you before. I was reflecting on it this week as I was preparing. You know, I can go hunting all day, every day. I can always be curious what's over the next rise, what's over the next ridge. I'm always wondering, I bet you that stand of timber, that might hold elk. What would happen if we pushed that stand of timber? I'm sure that someday I will hit the absolute maximum and I'll say, you know, I don't need to go hunting tomorrow. I have not yet hit that maximum yet. I know that some of us have other activities, like some maybe love to golf. One of my hunting friends, my cousin, is also a golfer. He can play golf all day, every day. You know, after about 3 holes, I find myself a little bit bored, wondering what's coming next. Somebody teased me last night. They said that I must be a really good golfer. And the answer is no. I just don't care if it goes left or right. I know it's not going straight, right? How about for you? Is there that activity that you could do all day, every day? And if there is a limit, you have not yet found it. Jesus talks about channeling some of that same sort of energy, but towards our prayer life. Don't grow weary. Disciples are persistent. And he gives the story of a widow who in his society didn't have rights, right? Widows, orphans, immigrants didn't have native-born men that had rights to plead their cause. And so this widow had to rely on hectoring the judge because she knew that it was just. And if he would eventually give a decision, he would have to decide in her favor. I think that a more modern example might be fighting with a bureaucracy, right? Whether it's like the IRS or the VA, you know, and it's right there in print that it's your right, but boy, you have to go through cycle after cycle after cycle after cycle of documentation and written testimony and back and forth and back and forth. And you know that if you finally talk to the right person and fill out the right piece of paper and mail it to the correct place, that your rights will be upheld. And we know how to hector a bureaucracy to make sure that they provide a just decision. Jesus tells us, be persistent in the same way that you would be with the federal government. Be persistent in the same way that Father Bill is out elk hunting. Never, ever, ever lose heart. And it's not just that petition prayer, right? It may also be gratitude or actions of love or adoration at God who is wonderful and awesome. To hit a bit of a serious note, I suspect that for all of us gathered here, each of us at one time or another in our faith journey have grown weary. We have lost heart. Whether that's this Sunday Mass participation and our commitment to each other, whether it's our daily forms of prayer, one time or another we have lost heart. That's part of the incredible gift of being here on a Sunday morning. Like Moses propped up against that rock in the first reading that Byron proclaimed, with his hands held up, a form of prayer, by Aaron and Hur, getting by with a little help from our friends, able to make it happen. Likewise, we too, helped by the gift of this faith community to be saints and to be disciples. It is commitment weekend for our United in God's Love campaign. So as part of this, we've asked Bonnie Legursky to come and to share a bit of a testimony of the way that she has been drawn deeper as a disciple and a steward. So I ask that you would give Bonnie your undivided attention as she comes and shares with us. Bonnie, please come forward.
Can I close this, Father? Can I close this?
Sorry?
Can I close this?
Yeah, feel free.
Good morning. As Father mentioned, my name is Bonnie Legursky, and I have been a part of this parish community since my family moved from Casper to Rock Springs when I was about 3 years old. My father was a cradle Catholic, and my mother was a new convert. I am the second of their 5 children, and I'm very grateful that they placed an importance on our being educated in the faith, opting to enroll us in Catholic school, as it was during those years that my faith took shape. I received my sacraments, married my high school sweetheart, baptized my children, watched them receive their sacraments, serve at the altar, and said goodbye to a beloved father, brother, and father-in-law, all in this parish. Other than for the few years attending the University of Wyoming, where I earned a degree in elementary education, this parish has been a consistent part of my life, like family. 2 weeks ago, when Father Bill asked me to give testimony, I pondered how I would go about sharing my faith journey, as I viewed it as deeply personal and something best kept private. However, with only a bit of waffling, I agreed. The next day happened to be the feast of St. Francis of Assisi, and I came across a quote by him which read, "Start by doing what is necessary, then do what is possible, and suddenly you are doing the impossible." This quote seemed to apply directly to me and to my faith journey, and it related to my state in life. My husband Bob worked as a high school business teacher and coached various sports. I was a full-time elementary teacher and then a junior high librarian. We were blessed with 2 beautiful children, a son, Matthew, and a daughter, Kristen. And between our careers, helping with homework, coaching our children's sports teams, scouts, piano lessons, and Monday afternoon religious ed classes, our life was quite hectic. So we focused on what was necessary for keeping our faith alive and assisting our children in developing theirs. My necessary. Teaching our children about God through the Catholic Church was of great importance. As I stated earlier, I am a Catholic school alum, so my religious education was just part of my regular school day. But as a teacher in the local school district, I felt obligated to send my children to public school and into religious education through the program offered by the parish. Good teaching requires modeling, so my husband and I made every effort at providing this through regular attendance at Sunday Mass, holy days of obligation, special celebrations such as the Triduum, teaching them their formal prayers needed for reception of the sacraments, and also encouraging them to serve at the altar. We also participated in some small group programs and attended a few of the missions offered by the parish over the years. As my family grew older, I found myself called to volunteer as a religious ed teacher. And it was while teaching a 10th grade class, the age for receiving confirmation at that time, that I realized my knowledge of the church and its teachings was sorely lacking. I basically had a 6th grade knowledge of the church and its teachings, as it was during that grade that I received my confirmation. And once I entered secondary school, my education in the faith ceased, believing rather naively that religious education ended once one received the gifts of the Spirit. Professionally, I was required to continually sharpen my knowledge and instructional skills through workshops and college courses, and I realized that I needed to adopt a similar practice with my faith. So I set out to learn more and began focusing on reading whatever resources I could find. But the pivotal point in my spiritual growth would be when the parish established the Adoration Chapel. With my children older and more independent, including a regular hour of adoration in my life was possible. My possibles. I have been introduced to the Adoration Chapel during elementary years in Catholic school. At certain times of year, during recess, we would see pairs of altar boys from the upper classes head to the church throughout the day. And later in the afternoon, our teachers gathered their classes and escorted them to the church There, keeping watch over the Blessed Sacrament would be those pair of altar servers. It was my first exposure to adoration, and I still vividly remember the sense of calm and peace that I felt. Therefore, I signed up for an hour and have been a regular adorer since the chapel's inception. Due to my prayer time at the chapel, I have become more attuned to the true presence of Christ in the Eucharist, and I am in such awe of joining with him through Holy Communion that at times I am brought to tears while in prayer afterward. Additionally, I would regularly pray for a deeper faith, thinking that once God felt I was ready, it would come upon me in some sudden way, but instead, it crept upon me slowly over the years, through small things such as a noticeable blossoming in my devotion to Mary, our Blessed Mother. One day I found a booklet at the chapel titled The Word Among Us. I so enjoyed reading it that I bought a subscription of my own. The daily Mass readings and reflections have now been a part of my prayer routine since that time, since my work schedule did not allow for my attendance at daily Mass. I also enjoyed the articles and stories of the saints and eventually signed up for a morning offering, which includes prayers and readings of the saints and their feast days. Information in this booklet would eventually lead me to yet another valuable source of growth in my journey. In 2017, about this very same time of year, I read about an online platform called Formed. It happened to be the 100th anniversary of the Miracle of the Sun. A documentary titled The 13th Day was being highlighted on that platform. My knowledge on Fatima was limited to the basics, so I decided to watch it several times as it turned out. I found the courage exhibited by the young Fatima children to be such an inspiration, that it prompted changes in my prayer life, and I placed greater importance on praying my rosary daily. I became so immersed in this site and its multitude of programs that soon I had completed a Marian consecration to Jesus through the formula developed by St. Louis de Montfort, a consecration to the Sacred Heart of Jesus, and developed a greater devotion to the Divine Mercy. I was so taken and excited with what I was learning that I unconsciously began to abandon the opinion that my faith was strictly personal and began sharing and started sharing it, especially with my family members, which now includes a son-in-law, a daughter-in-law, and 5 precious grandchildren. But I craved more. So when the parish offered a new Bible study through Ascension, which began in January of 2020, I eagerly signed up for an early morning session. Even with the pandemic causing a bit of a pause, our group was able to continue online. As the study progressed, I was amazed to see how the Bible was knit together. The apostles' experience when the resurrected Christ breathed upon them, opening their minds to the Scriptures, suddenly became very real to me. When the first study concluded, our group opted to continue with a second study, which then led to a third and then a fourth. Each week, I very much looked forward to gathering with this small group of participants, not once feeling burdened by completing the readings and the lessons. I really appreciated getting to know each participant better and hearing their individual thoughts and ideas. And from them, I have received many suggestions on additional sources which I have implemented into my daily routine, such as the Bible in a Year podcast with Father Mike Schmidt and the Hallow app. My desire to know Jesus and his church in more depth has become almost insatiable. And I have now found myself in new territory, doing what I thought was once to be impossible. My impossible. Publicly presented testimonials I typically associate as having a unique or even miraculous element to them, which is not characteristic of my journey. After Father asked me this favor, I was completely surprised when the word yes entered my mind. A few years ago, absolutely no would have flown out of my mouth without a sliver of consideration. You see, as a teacher and a school librarian, I am very at ease in front of a classroom of children. As a librarian, I even provided instruction to students on presentation techniques. However, as those that know me best can attest, presenting to a large group of adults is definitely not in my wheelhouse. My standing here in front of the bulk of my fellow parishioners, giving witness to my faith journey, is taking every bit of courage that I can muster. This courage is a result of my increased trust in God. Faced with serious life events over the last year, I am now acutely aware of just how near Jesus is. I realize that this journey, slow and deliberate as it was, has prepared me for these trials, the trials that I have been given. Hence, I now eagerly wait what other impossibilities God has in store for me. And so it is my hope that you too might contemplate the words of St. Francis. Start by doing what is necessary, then do what is possible, and suddenly you'll be doing the impossible, and see if they might have relevance for where you may be in your faith journey. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bonnie, for sharing. She told me before Mass this morning, she shared her testimony last night at the 4 o'clock Mass. She told me that she was every bit as nervous this morning as she was last evening. So thank you very much for your courage and your bravery, Bonnie. I appreciate it. It's amazing what we can do when we open ourselves to God's grace, right? God willing, as we listened to her, we were thinking about our own faith journey, the similarities, the differences, and aware of the ways that God is moving through our life as well. And all part of it, interwoven in, is this community that helps us to live more fully as disciples. And so we'll take a couple minutes and complete our commitment card, an opportunity for us to reflect intentionally on our gift to our church and our gift to God. On the other side of it as well is some lines for prayer intentions. We'll hold on to these and place them near our altars, and we'll pray for all of our prayer intentions for the next little while. You might remember 3 weeks ago, we filled out our time and talent commitment cards, and at the end of that, we placed them on the altar as a symbol of our offering to God. We'll do something similar today. These cards are shorter, so we won't have as long, but the music ministers will lead us in a little instrumental music, and we'll have a chance to fill these out. When we're done, we'll seal them, and then I'll give us a few more instructions, and we can bring them and place them on the altar as our sign of commitment to God. So I invite you, go ahead and grab a pencil, and go ahead and let's fill out this front side, and then the prayer intentions as well at the back. So I offered a couple weeks ago that we don't need to be quite as ordered and formal as we are during communion, coming up in rows through the main aisle. So if you'd like to come up on the side aisles, feel free. They don't have to be perfect stacks on the altar as well. a little divine chaos is itself a good thing. So I just invite us now to come forward and to make our commitment to God and to each other. If we need to hold on to these for a few weeks and connect with others, please drop them into the collection basket in the future, or put them on the altar in the future as we go forward. So please set them on the altar now.